Okay. Good morning, dear colleagues, dear friends. I would like to thank to organizers for the opportunity to present to you some of the results of our studies about eagles in Czech Republic. It's a joint presentation with Tomáš Bělka, who is sitting here. So briefly, something about Czech Republic, where it is located. The area is nearly 80,000 square kilometers. The altitude is from 115 to 1600 meters, but most of the area, 90%, is below 600 meters. We have afforestation of 36%. About a half of the forest is state-owned. We have only41 water bodies. The population is about 11 million. And we have 4 national parks, 26 protected landscape areas, and 41 special protected areas in frame of Natura 2000 system. So on this map, you see these special protected areas for the birds. The area of the border around the state is mainly hilly or mountainous, and there is a large lowland inside. And for the eagles, especially for white-tailed eagle and imperial eagle, this area is most important, while the other species are spread in other regions, which I will show later. So first is white-tailed eagle. White-tailed eagle bred in Czechia until the end of 19th century. In some region, most probably, though not confirmed, even until 1920s, but then it was extinct for nearly 100 years, and it started to breed again in the mid-80s. They came from 2 different directions. One was from Germany and Poland, and the second one was from Hungary. In both of these regions, the population was already expanding at this time, and they started to colonize our area. So from the first 2 pairs, which bred in mid-1980s, we reached the present level, which is about 160 to 180 breeding pairs. We have some problems with the state of forests in Czechia. First of all, we have a lot of spruce forests, Picea abies, in the lowland, in not good areas. And last 5 years, they were largely affected by the gradation of bark beetle, Ictus typographus, which led to a large-scale diebreak of the forests. Another problem is in the lowland floodplain forests, where ashes, Fraxinus, are very much affected by the mushroom disease chalara, and there's also large diebreak of the forests. And this leads to the fact that white-tailed eagle started to occupy suboptimum or non-optimal habitats. So you see like this. Sorry. This is the solitary large larix tree. Here is the nest very close to the frequented railway, or here some riparian forest or tree line. So of course the breeding success in such nest size is not as high as in compact forests. One interesting thing you probably would not expect from the Czech Republic is stellar seagull, Halietus pelagicus. We have one bird who escaped in 2013 from the Prague Zoo. 2 years, nothing was known about it, but later it appeared in the area of South Bohemia. It stays there for already 8 years. It continually reached the full adult plumage, and in the last winter it mated. It's a male, and it mated with the female of white-tailed eagle and occupied the old nest of white-tailed eagle and started to rebuild it. There was no clutch laid, so we will see what will happen in the next years. It utilizes the communal roost with some 10 or 15 white-tailed eagles, let's say the flock of white-tailed eagles. Another species is imperial eagle. Imperial eagle is the new species in Czechia. It started to breed in 1998, and from 1 pair in 1998, we reached this year's status 24 pairs. The species is spreading to north and to the west. Currently now we have the westernmost pair in the world, and also northernmost pair within the Pannonian population. Here's the graph showing the population development of imperial eagle in Czechia. So you see the blue line is territorial pairs and other values, nesting pairs, breeding pairs, which means these who laid the clutch, successfully breeding pairs, and the number of fledglings. Here is the map which briefly shows the process of spreading or of colonization. There are suitable habitats also in the other regions. We hope or suppose that within a few years, maybe this species will reach also Germany or Poland. Here, some pictures of the nest sites. I chose some not clearly typical nest sites like this. It would be usually more typical habitat for white-tailed eagle, the wetland with some old poplars. This is one of the mountainous nests, which is in the border with Slovakia, in hills with about 500 or 600 meters above the sea level. This is more or less a more typical nest on solitary Robinia, black locust tree. And most of the nests in Czechia are built on poplar trees and on oak trees, and most of them are on mistletoe, viscum, or in case of oak trees, they are on Loranthus europaeus, parasitic shrub. Another species is lesser spotted eagle. With lesser spotted eagle, they bred in Czechia until late 1980s or early 1990s, mainly in this border area is Šumava-Böhmerwald, the border region with Germany and Austria. Then the breeding was ceased and we had about 20 years break. And then they started to colonize the area again. Here they breed since 2012, some years even two pairs. There is some connectivity with German population, but anyway, it's surprising that the nesting site still exists or still persists because it lies apart of the main migration road, but obviously the eagles are still coming. And then we see a very nice development in the other regions. Here in Northern Moravia region, lesser spotted eagle started to breed in 2018, and now we have up to 3 breeding pairs. Then in Eastern Bohemia, they started to breed in 2020, and since this year there's also a second pair, and there are some observations also in the traditional former breeding area and in the border with Slovakia and in some other regions, so maybe the total population can reach up to 10 breeding pairs. And the last regular breeding species is golden eagle. We used to have golden eagles about 100 years ago. We lost them as being extinct due to general Raptors persecution. And then the reintroduction program started in the, near the border with Slovakia and Poland. Altogether, something like 27 birds were released, and after 5 years, the golden eagle started to breed there. Surprisingly, those birds who formed the first breeding pair were not those released. They were completely wild birds coming from Slovakia, because Slovakia, the country which is west of Czechia, has an increasing population of over 100 breeding pairs, and they are increasing both in terms of population size and in terms of range. Now there are up to 3 breeding pairs in the releasing area, and also some new pairs started to breed more. More to the east. So now we have minimum 5 or 6 territorial pairs, and altogether we have 10 successful breeding attempts. So the population of all 4 breeding eagles at this moment is increasing, which is quite surprising. Here we show the hypsometric graph of altitudes preferred by particular species. except for white-tailed eagle. So you see that the lowland is occupied exclusively by imperial eagle. Then in altitudes 400 to 600 meters, there is a slight overlap of all three species. Lesser-spotted eagle breeds between 400 and 800 meters above the sea level, and the highest altitudes are occupied by the golden eagle. Regarding white-tailed eagle, we have the highest nests in about 700, 750 meters above the sea level. The main threats include forestry. As I told, it was always the very important threat, but now it's even more important because of these forest diebacks. Then also electrocution, general raptor persecution, both poisoning and shooting. Here, for example, it was a very sad case when the white-tailed eagle nest where both male and female were poisoned and chicks died in the nest. This is a very bad example of practice. This is a state-owned forest. You see the fence, which was built during the incubation of imperial eagle, even though the foresters knew very well that there is the imperial eagle nest, and we arranged something like a protection zone, but they did this. But surprisingly, the pair was successful and they did one chick. And now I would only mention two more species. This is short-toed eagle. We have increasing number of observations of short-toed eagle, and there are some discussions of or suspicions of breeding in Western Slovakia. So maybe within a few years we can get also a new breeding species. In past, short-toed eagle never bred within the territory of Czechia. This is osprey. This is interesting because osprey is a regular passage migrant, both in spring and autumn migration. And during the last few, let's say last 10 or the last 2 decades, we have more than 10 or 15 breeding attempts, but it always ended with building of the nest, but they never lay the clutch. So maybe this behavior is only part of, let's say, pair bond or sexual behavior, but not really an intention not to breed. This was quite an interesting... Sorry, I will already finish like this. This was quite an interesting case because this nest was built by, by osprey, but finally was occupied by an invasive species, Egyptian goose, which is now starting to be a problem in Czechia. And the last species is the greater spotted eagle, which is quite also surprising because it is apart the continuous range, but in mid-1840s, it bred successfully in Eastern Bohemia. The chick was found in the museum collection as a stuffed specimen. And I would like to thank everybody who provided photos for our presentation and to you for your attention. Thank you very much.
We have time for several questions. Thank you. That was a good presentation.
Thank you for the presentation. I do have one question regarding the coexisting of Egyptian goose and osprey in the same nest. So it is a one-time incident, or you are noticing this multiple times?
No. In spring, the pair of ospreys built the nest, but then they left the site, and later the pair of Egyptian geese occupied the nest and reared the family.
Okay, thank you so much.
Вы сказали, что вы пытались размножать скопу в территории Чехии, так? Также вы сказали, что орлан белохвост у вас тоже гнездится. Так как это две виды, которые встречаются в одних и тех же местах, у них одинаковый рацион, то, возможно, между ними какая-то конкуренция. Вы не изучили такие этот вопрос?
Sorry, I forgot the headphones. I'm not sure if I understood well, but like regarding osprey, Skopa, it is thought to be a historical breeder in the 19th century within the territory of Czechia, but it was never 100% proof. So we suppose it bred rarely in Czechia, but we don't know for sure. And now this behavior suggests that maybe they will start to breed again. or to breed, but so far never they laid the clutch. They only built the nest and they never laid the clutch. Did I answer properly your question?
I've got a question. Can you maybe speculate on why you think the lesser spotted eagle is recolonizing?
Obviously, this species changed the migration behavior in past. It was supposed that the immature birds until a certain age stay in Africa, but the telemetry shows that this is not true. We even have proof that second calendar year birds are coming back to Central Europe. We have, this is one thing I forgot to mention, that we also have tens of birds, tens of lesser spotted eagles every season, like floaters or like non-breeders occurring in the region. But on 20 or even 10 years ago, it was extremely rare bird in Czechia, and now you can see them quite regularly. But we don't know what is the reason, because as far as I know, the Slovak population is more or less declining. Maybe Tomáš, my colleague, would, because he's also spotted eagle specialist, so maybe he knows more about this particular species. Simply, some of them decided to breed, found a good habitat and started to breed. It may have a connection with the vole gradations we had, because or in past the vole population was cyclic, then it nearly stopped in 80s and 90s, and now we experienced two large gradations in 2019 and 2023 this year, and this is somehow connected with the growing populations of all the mouse eaters, let's say.
Thank you.